Don't look now, but Deion Sanders just made a weird admission that should have Colorado fans quite worried.
You are Locked On Buffs, your daily podcast on the Colorado Buffaloes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, everybody? This is Locked On Buffs. I am your host, Kevin Bohr, but today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. From big upsets to game-winning drives, the NFL playoffs are better with FanDuel. New customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets, guaranteed win or lose. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. We're also brought to you by the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day for free and available wherever you get your podcast. So thank you guys for making me your first listen of the day. Like I said, free and available wherever you get your podcast. So make sure to like, subscribe, and follow so that way you don't miss out on a moment of the coverage. Become an everydayer. Let's just talk about it. Deion Sanders said the quiet part out loud, and I think a lot of you specifically didn't want to hear this, and now he's put it out into the world, and it's a possibility that he could leave Colorado. And I've been talking about this. I talked about it when the Raiders job opened, and I talked about it just in general when NFL jobs would start to open and his name would be tossed around in the mix. Now, he hasn't been reported to have interviewed for any of these NFL jobs, but he went on Good Morning America yesterday and said the following, quote, and this is about him going to the NFL. The only way I would consider it is to coach my sons, not my sons, so Shedeur and Shilo. I love Colorado. I love my Buffaloes. I love everything we're building and everything we're doing. I love Boulder, Colorado. I do immensely. But obviously, the fact that he is even considering or even throwing out the possibility that he would leave, it makes you wonder, like, why would he say that? Right? He said countless times he doesn't want to go to the NFL. He said countless times he wants to finish his career in Colorado. And I know a lot of you got upset when I brought this up, but hey, this is him saying that. And some of you might say, oh, this is just a ploy for him to get a bigger contract, right? He could rake in the millions. He had a huge 9-4 season this past year, and he could really be due for a monster contract extension, which, don't worry, I thought about that too, until I saw a Joel Klatt report on Denver Sports, 104.3 The Fan, and Joel Klatt revealed that Coach Prime has and this is the quote, a very, very, very good offer in front of him at Colorado that hasn't been signed. And Joel Klatt doesn't know why it hasn't been signed. So what does this mean? Well, for starters, I'll go through the three possibilities. One, this means that Deion Sanders is possibly looking for an out at Colorado and for a way to coach his sons. Two, maybe he wants a bigger deal. Or three, maybe he just doesn't want to coach anymore. Or the fourth option, maybe Coach Prime is just playing with everyone's emotions a little bit, because I feel like that's also a possibility. He's very, very well versed in the media world. He knows that Colorado without Shedeur Sanders, Travis Hunter isn't going to be the same sort of entertainment value, right? You lose two of college football's best players and you expect everyone to be as interested. It's not the case, right? Colorado's viewership went down this year compared to last year. And I think part of that is because people didn't want to see them succeed. I think people enjoyed in them losing. I also think they had some tough TV times, whether it be early in the morning or late at night, that really didn't welcome the rest of the country to watching them. But that being said, Deion Sanders, again, I'll read the quote because this isn't me making this up. This isn't me speculating. This is what the head coach of Colorado had to say about going to the NFL. Excuse the weak voice. I have a little cough. He said, the only way I would consider it is to coach my sons, not sons. Sons. I love Colorado. I love my Buffaloes. I love everything we're building and everything we're doing. I love Boulder. I do immensely. But obviously, when you put this out into the world, after months of saying, I have no interest in coaching at the NFL level. I have no interest of following my sons. And then he went on the podcast, $1 Million Worth of Game, with Gilly the Kid and Wallow, and said, I'm not following them, but you got to think of it logically as a father. So clearly he's thought about this, and clearly, and he doubled down. He said, I would coach in the NFL if I could coach both my sons, plural. So clearly there's this package deal where if he can make sure that both of his sons, Shedeur and Shilo, because Shedeur is going to be a top 10 pick. Shilo, on the other hand, is viewed as an undrafted free agent type of guy, maybe a late round flyer. So I think he's sort of trying to parlay both of his sons into an NFL roster spot and another opportunity to coach them. And I know a lot of people would probably be shocked at this, but Deion Sanders hasn't really coached a team without his sons being on it. I think maybe the only time was his first season at Jackson State, but I think Shilo was transferring to Jackson State. I just don't think he was playing yet. So we'll just say max. There's been one season where he's coached that, at least with his sons, where they haven't been on the roster. And I think a lot of what got him into coaching was he wanted to coach his sons the right way. Obviously, he brings a ton of knowledge to the game. But if you're Colorado, you have to go all hands on deck. You throw him an even bigger offer. You go, hey, how can we get this? How could we get these narratives away? Because I think the one thing that's worked in favor of Colorado, and this isn't just me being completely honest, is so far the timing hasn't aligned with Deion Sanders to link up with another job, right? This past cycle, or after his first year, right? Colorado goes 4-8. Alabama opens, Texas A&M opens, Duke opens. I'm trying to think of like other jobs. There's a lot of jobs that opened. He didn't really, obviously the 4-8 record wasn't good enough for a program to really consider, like a program of that magnitude, whether Alabama, A&M, whoever. It wasn't good enough, Washington, for him to be considered, right? He still had some work to be done. Then this year, there wasn't really an attractive job market. I think the biggest, most sexiest job was North Carolina. And they went after Bill Belichick, who had ties to the program because his dad coached there in like the 50s. And other than that, there wasn't really an appealing job that I think would have been a step up for Coach Prime to leave Colorado. So that worked in their favor. And then NFL-wise, there's 6 jobs open. But I don't think one winning season at the Power 4 level is enough to get him into the NFL. That being said, he's certainly going to put out some feelers, obviously. This is him putting out feelers, whether people want to admit it or not. You don't say this kind of thing unless you're sort of interested in it happening. And so I'll be really interested to see if we see any reports linking him to an NFL team. I feel like because of how bad that's gone for NFL teams as of late, I don't foresee it happening, right? Matt Rule, he failed miserably. Urban Meyer failed miserably. Nick Saban back in the day didn't really have the best tenure coaching in the NFL. Cliff Kingsbury, same thing, didn't really have the best tenure coaching in the NFL. So it's not really a common leap that people make and have success in. I think Pete Carroll is one of the few, and I think Pete Carroll had prior NFL experience. So it's really interesting that Coach Prime went out there and said this after he's been denying interest in, 1, following his sons to the NFL, and 2, coaching his sons in the NFL, or coaching in the NFL in general. So really interesting that he decided to say this now. You guys comment below. What do you make of this, right? Do you think Coach Prime actually wants to go to the NFL, or is he just sort of working his way into a bigger deal with the Buffs? You guys let me know, and we'll talk about that in the comment section. When we come back, we're going to be talking about Colorado's latest transfer portal edition. Of course, he makes a portal edition while also sparking NFL rumors. This episode of Locked On Buffs is brought to you by Rocket Money. Did Rocket Money help you find any subscriptions you forgot about or that you were paying for twice? That's definitely happened to me. I had a few subscriptions that I didn't even realize I was still paying for, and Rocket Money made it so easy to track them all down. It's like having a personal assistant for your finances. For me, one of the best features is a subscription tracker. I've used it to cancel services I wasn't using anymore, and I've already saved a ton. Plus, with their goals feature, I've been able to automatically set aside money for my future. No more stressing about budgeting every month. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/lockedon today. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedon. Welcome back to Locked On Buffs. I appreciate you guys for tuning in every single day, making me your first listen of the day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts. So thank you guys for making me your first listen of the day. Make sure to like, subscribe, and follow if you don't already. Really, really close to 7,000 subscribers. Want to get there so that way we can continue to build momentum. Colorado landed yet another offensive lineman, and it was just one day after I talked about what they needed from the portal, and they go out and get a guy who's proven across the offensive front. They land Zy Chrysler from Illinois. He's a guy who started quite a few games for them, and I think is a guy who Xylon Chrysler from Illinois. 6'7", 350 from Mississippi. During the 2023 season, he played in 11 games, started 9 at right guard and 2 at right tackle, so he could be a little bit of everything for the Buffs. was Big Ten all honorable mention from the media. And despite missing a game due to injury this past season, he's done a little bit of everything. He's played a little bit here, a little bit there, started 13 games at right guard, and he's also moved a little bit over at right tackle. And so now Colorado's offensive line has, and I think Scott Proctor put it best on Twitter, which I'll pull this tweeter up right now. The Buffs brought in 3 portal linemen, plus you also have to factor in that they have Jordan Seaton, and now they're cooking with some oil, cooking with some gas, if you will. Things are starting to heat up, right? They have 3 transfer offense linemen since the season ended. The trios combined for 65 starts and 94 games played. Excuse me. So 65 starts, 94 games played. They have Aki OG from Texas A&M, Zarian McGill from Louisiana Tech, and Zy Chrysler from Illinois. So clearly they are building up a unit that they could trust, building up a unit that could get the run game going, and building up a unit that I think should be a step up from this past year. Right? I think you go Jordan Seaton at left tackle. This is where it gets interesting, right? I think you'll mix and match. I think Zarian McGill will play center. He's also played a couple of the guard spots. Zy Chrysler could be over there at one of the guard spots as well. So I think they have a real opportunity to bolster this offensive line. I think they have a real opportunity to make use of the running back weapons that they have, because I think people are discrediting how good Colorado's running back room is because we haven't seen them do anything. But granted, Colorado's running back room is getting clobbered every time they get the ball because they're getting blown up in the backfield, right? They're not getting blocks long enough to make it out of past the line of scrimmage. So really, really big get from Colorado here. And he started for 3 seasons at Illinois, earned all Big Ten honors twice, and he's also older. He's a veteran. He's got an extra year of eligibility because of the Diego Pavia rule. So another guy who Colorado should be thanking Diego Pavia for, because I think Martavius French was the other one where had a JUCO year, and so because of the Diego Pavia rule, which basically in layman's terms and poor explanation wise here, junior college guys within a certain span didn't have a chance to profit off their NIL or something like that. So they got an extra year of eligibility. So whatever the proper explanation is, the Diego Pavia rule, it's working out for Colorado. They're getting some major additions to the portal, and the offense line is going to be looking real good. I like whether it's Caden Salter or Julian Lewis, I like what the group in front of them is looking like. I'll put it that way. When we come back, we're going to be talking about the latest mock drafts and where they have Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter falling. Welcome back to Locked On Buffs. This episode of Locked On Buffs is brought to you by the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day for free and available wherever you get your podcast. So thank you for making me your first listen of the day. Like I said, free and available wherever you get your podcast. Make sure to like, subscribe, and follow so that way you don't miss out on a second of the coverage. The guys over at NBC Sports released a new mock draft, and this is one of my favorite NFL draft insiders, Connor Rogers. So I'm going to go off his draft. He has the updated draft order, and so starts off with Tennessee Titans taking Cam Ward at number 1, Travis Hunter going number 2 to the Cleveland Browns, which I think is interesting because that seems like a quarterback needy team, but obviously they don't go quarterback here. He said, while staring at the hourglass waiting for the sand to empty out on Deshaun Watson contract, the Browns will finally look to add real competition at quarterback this offseason. I would imagine they try to do that in the pro market first, and if they're successful, this opens the door for them to take the best player in the draft, which is Travis Hunter. So clearly there's sort of a mindset around the Browns that, like, hey, we suck at drafting quarterbacks, so maybe we should just sign one and hope that we can build around him. I think that's a bold strategy considering the Browns have been quarterback hell for my whole life. I'm 25 years old, and I don't know if there's ever been a good moment. I think the best Browns quarterback I could think of, I don't even know. That's a tough question. Like, I want to say, like, best Browns quarterback. It's hard to tell because honestly, I don't know who I remember being useful at all. At least in my lifetime, I know they've had some guys during the leather helmet era that were good, but yeah, I feel like Tim Couch is not during my life. He's kind of during my lifetime, 99 through 2003. I was born in 99. So yeah, Baker Mayfield, even though they gave up on him, was another one. But hey, either way, I don't mind. I don't hate the strategy here. You're not very good at developing or drafting quarterbacks, so why not just take in a finished product and hope that he could win you some games. So number 3, Shedeur Sanders. The Giants, he said the Giants opted to keep general manager Joe Schoen and head coach Brian Daboll, who have no choice but to find their answer quarterback. Unless Penn State's Drew Aller ends up declaring, Ward and Sanders are the only 2 quarterbacks I see going in the first round. So, like I said, I said this, I think, on yesterday's episode, the episode before, when someone said that Shedeur Sanders wasn't a first-round pick. This class is so shallow that there's a lot of, you guys familiar with the concept of supply and demand, right? Demand for quarterbacks is high, supply is not. So that's going to lead to some teams reaching up for these 2 guys. Whether Shedeur and Cam Ward would have gone first in last year's draft, probably not. But I do like both the fits. I think it makes sense for the Browns to sort of avoid drafting a quarterback because, again, they can't develop him worth a you-know-what. So when you get a guy like Travis Hunter, he's a star. He could play a little bit of both, and I think he makes your life easier in terms of running an offense or scheming up an offense. That being said, I feel like I'd be very disappointed for Travis to go to Cleveland. I think we all expected him to go to like a maybe like the Patriots or the Raiders, Jaguars. Maybe he goes to the Giants or the Saints or whatever. But hey, someone's got to go to the Browns. And I think Travis Hunter's motivation, determination, grit, I think he'll help turn the culture around in Cleveland because obviously Travis Hunter is a very big culture guy, and I don't think people realize that. There's a lot of moments in Boulder where you could see him chewing people out because he wants to win so bad. And obviously everyone in Cleveland wants to win, but maybe when you have a rookie yelling at you like, hey, let's win some games, maybe it changes things up a little bit. In terms of Shedeur going to the Giants, that's kind of the shot he called, right? He had the Giants cleats. He had the colorways of the Coach Prime shoe cleats. I forget what they're called, the diamond turfs or whatever. He had the red and blue ones. And again, I think Drew Aller is sort of the wild card of this class because if Drew Aller declares, I think Shedeur and Cam Ward each get bumped down a slot. So if Shedeur gets bumped down, like say Drew Aller declares and he goes number 1 to the Titans, and then the Giants have to take a quarterback. Well, say they go Cam Ward, all of a sudden Shedeur to the Raiders at 6 looks likely because the Patriots don't need a quarterback. The Jacksonville Jaguars don't need a quarterback. Or maybe he goes 1 spot lower to the Jets if the Raiders don't end up taking him, which would be shocking if they had the chance that they pass on him. So those are the 2 landing spots that I'm seeing right now. I think the best fit for each guy, for Travis, and Coach Prime kind of already said this, it's a team that's going to let him do both, right? He wants to play offense. He wants to play defense. However they figure that out, it doesn't have to be every single play on both sides of the ball. That being said, you do want to make sure that you get the most out of him. So if a team can figure out a way to get him on certain packages on offense and a certain few packages on defense, great. I just don't know if that's the best way to maximize him, but I feel like you got to at least try it at first before you really force his hand and be like, okay, Travis, like this isn't going to work. This is what we have to do here to really get the most out of you. Because if I was Travis, I'd want to play receiver. They get paid more. The careers are longer. Travis obviously has a defensive background, and I think he's viewed as a generational defensive prospect, and I don't think he's viewed as a generational receiver prospect. So if I were him, receiver, there's more money there, longer career, but I think the teams all view him as a generational player at corner, so that'd be interesting. Shedeur Sanders wise, I don't know. I think he's really made it clear the past couple days that he'll play for anyone. I don't know if that's him trying to maybe work his way to the number 1 pick or to Cleveland at 2. Like maybe he doesn't want to fall in the top 5. I'm not really sure. I also think his dad sort of saying this about the NFL, another intriguing factor. I don't know what Shedeur Sanders' plans are, but I think he has sort of he has a wild card factor to him because same thing with Drew Aller. Obviously, if Drew Aller declares, this changes everything. But Shedeur Sanders, his dad has gone on record, his dad/coach, and said if they don't like the team, it'll be an Eli. So I'm just confused what teams they'd approve of. And I think it'll happen behind closed doors, but it won't stay behind closed doors forever, right? I think there's leaks in everybody's camp, Colorado included. And so for Shedeur to sort of already have the notion that you won't play for certain teams, and now it's like, I'll just play for whoever, I'm not really sure what to make of that. So it'll be really interesting to see how this plays out. Going to have some more draft experts come on the show so that way we could discuss the matter even more. I can't wait to see what you guys have to say about all the madness that's happening around Boulder right now. That being said, this has been another episode of Locked On Buffs. I appreciate you guys for tuning in every single day, making me your first listen of the day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast. Make sure to like, subscribe, and follow. I will see you guys tomorrow.